Chosen soul, I need you to be honest with yourself for a moment. Have you noticed how the path you've chosen, the moment you committed to a life of purpose and faith, seemed to get exponentially harder? You started seeking what is right, and suddenly your life felt like a relentless siege. Doors you thought were secure slammed shut. The people you leaned on became strangers, and the quiet moments, the ones you expected to be peaceful, were filled with a deafening, unsettling silence. It's natural to look at your life and whisper the question, if I've been chosen for something great, why does it feel like I'm being relentlessly attacked and left completely alone? The spiritual fatigue you feel, the profound exhaustion that no one sees because it's a battle fought entirely within your soul, is real. You pray with fervor, you search for signs, yet the heavens seem indifferent, completely muted. Every attempt you make to stand strong and move forward is met with invisible resistance, a powerful force pushing you back down to your knees. This internal wrestling leads to a deeper, more agonizing question. If my life is meant to serve a higher purpose, why must the journey to claim that purpose be paved with such intense, continuous pain? Here's the profound and often overlooked truth, the vital piece of revelation that many who walk this walk never fully grasp. The Creator of the universe does not entrust monumental power and world-altering authority to a soul that has not been thoroughly and strategically prepared to wield it. Before God unleashes a chosen one to dramatically transform the world around them, He first undertakes a massive, painful, yet necessary project, the complete overhaul and fortification of the world within them. This internal reconstruction is not achieved through easy accolades, comforting rewards, or public recognition. It is forged through a series of unseen, profound, and deeply personal tests. These are not the trials that take place on a public stage for all to witness and applaud. They are private, quiet battles fought in the deepest recesses of your spirit, where only God can observe the truth of your allegiance. To be clear, these are not punishments. They are rigorous, bespoke preparations. You must understand that heaven does not commission its most formidable warriors through soft comfort and convenient ease. The training ground of destiny is a refining fire. Therefore, if you currently find yourself swimming in a sea of confusion, crippled by spiritual depletion, experiencing cruel rejection, or battling a season of unanswered prayers, it is not a sign of divine abandonment. Quite the opposite. It is an ironclad guarantee that God is actively preparing you for a level of destiny so immense, so powerful that the person you were before could not have possibly survived it. In the next few minutes, I'm going to draw back the curtain on the 7 foundational tests that every single chosen vessel must pass through before God fully releases and activates their divine calling. Pay special attention to the 7th and final test. It is the absolute gate that unlocks everything that follows. Do not leave this space until you hear it, because once the nature of these tests is made clear, you will realize with shocking clarity that nothing in your life was working against you. Every single challenge, every hurt, was strategically working for you. Before we dive into the details, if this truth resonates deep within your spirit, take a second to click the like button so this vital message can reach another chosen soul who desperately needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel immediately, because this platform is designed to be a potent spiritual weapon for your journey. And as a public declaration, I want you to comment 99 below. Biblically, 99 is a sacred number, symbolizing the very last moment before a promised completion, the final critical step before God reveals the finished masterpiece He has been diligently preparing. The ones who type 99 are those who make an unbreakable public covenant to refuse to quit, right on the precipice of their biggest breakthrough. Are you ready to claim it? Then draw near and listen to what the Spirit is speaking. The 7 tests of the chosen one. The test of God's silence. This is the first great hurdle, the test that causes countless believers to abandon their path without ever realizing they were, in fact, being promoted. There arrives a stark and unavoidable season in every chosen one's journey when the communication lines to heaven go completely quiet. You send your heartfelt prayers upward, yet the only response that ever returns is a hollow echo. There are no clear signs, no comforting answers, and no discernible direction. It is in this vacuum that your mind begins to whisper the most insidious and dangerous lie. Perhaps God forgot about you. Yet, you must understand a profound truth. The silence of God is never, ever the absence of God. Silence is, in fact, the most intense classroom of the Spirit. It is the proving ground where God measures the true substance of your character and the foundation of your faith. It is easy, even simple, to believe when miracles are dropping into your lap, promises are glowing brightly, and every door is effortlessly swinging open. The truly chosen are not identified in those seasons of ease. They are separated and distinguished in the seasons when nothing makes sense. The deep silence ruthlessly exposes what your faith is genuinely constructed from. Many will compromise their values. Many will abandon the disciplined path. And many will run back to the predictable comfort of the life they swore they'd left behind. But the ones who remain, those who stand firmly rooted, who remain faithful without immediate tangible reward, are the only ones considered trustworthy enough to be entrusted with profound revelation. In the silence, God is observing your heart. Not your ability, not your giftedness, but the core of your loyalty. Will you continue your worship when no physical blessings are manifestly present? Will you persist in prayer when your tears seem to be the only reply you receive? Will your trust hold steady when God intentionally veils his voice? The spiritual desert you find yourself in is not a sentence of punishment. It is a meticulous, necessary spiritual surgery. Noise is the ultimate distraction, but silence is the ultimate revealer. It exposes what residual forces still control you, what old wounds still fester, and what elements within you still desperately need to die. In this season, God is not actively ignoring you. He is diligently removing every single piece of baggage that would inevitably sabotage the magnificent future he is crafting for you. Chosen souls are not molded in the midst of loud, supportive crowds. They are painstakingly built in isolation. And here is the brutal part that often goes unsaid. When God intentionally goes silent, the enemy simultaneously becomes excruciatingly loud. Thoughts of crushing fear, crippling doubt, and debilitating confusion surge like an unrelenting spiritual hurricane. The silence feels like torture, not because God has retreated, but because he is observing to see if your core loyalty remains unshakable, even when your emotions have completely collapsed. If you recognize that you are currently navigating this brutal season, grasp this sacred concept. The silence is a deliberate sign that God has transitioned you from spiritual childhood to profound maturity. Children require constant, reassuring verbal confirmation. Warriors, however, are trained to walk by unwavering faith, and the formidable warrior within you is now being powerfully activated. God does not speak during the ultimate test. Teachers never provide answers during the examination, and once this specific exam concludes, the profound revelation will instantly begin. Hold on to your soul, chosen one, because this profound silence does not and cannot last forever. When God finally breaks it, he will not return with timid whispers. He will erupt with clear instruction, undeniable clarity, and immediate breakthrough. But before that glorious moment, there is a subsequent deeper test waiting. 2. The test of loss. This next trial leaves an almost indelible scar on the heart of every chosen soul. It is the moment when God doesn't merely become silent. He permits something of deep value to be definitively removed. Nothing in life adequately prepares the chosen one for the sheer, suffocating weight of this unique pain. You may be able to endure loneliness. You can survive the agony of prolonged waiting. But when God sanctions the removal of something you genuinely cherish, a pivotal relationship, a longtime friend, a cherished dream, a stable job, or even a foundational version of your own identity, it feels like the ultimate betrayal. The internal cry is agonizing. If God's love is real, why would he ever allow this catastrophic event to happen? Yet here is the raw, difficult revelation that only the most mature can accept. God will always systematically remove whatever competes with him. This is not an act of cruelty. It is the highest form of spiritual protection. You cannot possibly carry the sheer weight of your destiny while simultaneously remaining chained to people, places, or things that were never intended to follow you into it.
Often what you lost was secretly, silently,
draining your vitality. Sometimes, the person you were desperately clinging to was, in reality, clinging to you for the sole purpose of keeping your destiny small and manageable. Certain situations may have offered a sense of comfort, but they were, in truth, spiritual cages. And because you lacked the spiritual fortitude to let go yourself, God mercifully made the devastating but necessary decision for you. The pain is undeniably authentic. The feeling of emptiness is substantial and heavy, and the scars often remain long after the raw memory has faded. But loss is not a grave. Loss is a necessary doorway. The ultimate blessing in this scenario is not that God took something away, but that He firmly refused to allow it to destroy the core of who you are. There were individuals subtly conspiring against you. There were specific environments where your God-given spirit was slowly shrinking. There were paths that seemed like promising opportunities but were, in disguise, sophisticated spiritual traps. You could not see the danger, but God in His omniscience saw it all, and that is precisely why He tore it violently away. Sometimes, for your soul to be utterly protected, God must first break your heart. The loss compels you to face the fundamental question of who or what is truly sustaining your life. Is it the person, the grand plan, the stable identity, or is it Him? And when He becomes your singular, all-encompassing source, the spiritual chains fall away. The chains of dependency, the chains of paralyzing fear, and the chains of comfort masquerading as purpose. You begin to realize with clarity that what you believed you lost was never truly yours. It was simply borrowed for a season, and when that season's purpose expired, God simply returned it to its proper place. The chosen are fundamentally refined through a process of spiritual subtraction. Not every single thing that exits your life represents a loss. Some unexpected exits are, in truth, heavenly rescue missions. And once the initial emotional dust begins to settle, you start to notice a strange phenomenon. Without that specific person, without that old job, without that former version of yourself, your spirit feels noticeably lighter. Your mind achieves a crystalline clarity. Your core purpose becomes dramatically sharper. You didn't actually lose anything. You were expertly repositioned. 3. The test of temptation. The enemy is a brilliant strategist. Immediately after a profound loss, the soul becomes inherently vulnerable and fragile. Your heart is newly cracked, your spiritual defenses are momentarily weakened, and your entire being is desperately searching for anything that can stop the excruciating pain. It is in this precise, highly vulnerable moment that temptation makes its subtle, quiet entrance. It rarely appears as overt sin. It most often arrives disguised as comfort, as a welcoming distraction, or as a surprisingly easy escape route. Temptation almost never appears truly dangerous to a soul that has been chosen. It looks and feels like legitimate relief, a text message from a toxic person you should have left firmly in the past, an attractive opportunity that promises instant spectacular results with absolutely zero sacrifice, a convenient decision that feels momentarily good, but which quietly and persistently pulls you further away from the pure, powerful destiny God is forging you to become. This is the precise reason why temptation is so lethally effective. It never attempts to instantly destroy your destiny. It endeavors to slowly, systemically drain your will to fight for it. A tiny compromise here, a minor, easily justified lie there. One barely perceptible step off the path today, another gentle deviation tomorrow. The enemy holds no need to kill your glorious destiny. He simply needs you to willingly walk away from it. The chosen ones who fall into the snares of temptation rarely fall because they are inherently evil. They fall because they are spiritually tired. They fall because they are profoundly hurting. They fall because all they truly desire is for the terrifying storm to finally cease. But hear this undeniable truth. The enemy will never tempt you with what you loathe. He always tempts you with what you profoundly miss. This often manifests as familiar places, familiar, comforting habits, and familiar, once-trusted people. That is why the most lethal temptation is not the external circumstance. It is the treacherous landscape within your own memory. And yet, this is precisely why God must allow this difficult test to occur. Heaven pays the utmost attention to the choices you deliberately make when absolutely no one else is watching. It is effortlessly easy to maintain spiritual discipline when every facet of your life is going perfectly well. It's simple to declare, "I trust God," when your life is comfortable and convenient. But when you are actively grieving, totally exhausted, riddled with doubt, consumed by anger, and the unexpected offer of escape suddenly materializes, that is the moment when the authenticity of your spiritual authority is definitively revealed. Every single time you refuse to retreat to what God definitively pulled you out of, something deep within your spirit grows exponentially stronger. Every time you consciously walk away from the thing that once held undeniable control over you, spiritual chains shatter. Every time you say a definitive no to your old self, your imminent calling draws undeniably closer. The test of temptation is fundamentally not about achieving immediate perfection. It is entirely about maintaining your spiritual direction. Even if you falter momentarily, rise again. Even if you stumble and fail, immediately return to the path. God does not grant the ultimate crown to the flawless. He bestows the crown upon the faithful. And those who successfully conquer this grueling test receive an unparalleled spiritual gift: profound clarity. Suddenly, the spiritual fog that clouded your mind begins to lift. The crushing heaviness that weighed down your spirit begins to break apart. Your spiritual discernment becomes razor sharp. Your deep-seated confidence immediately returns, and without fully comprehending it, you have ascended into a fundamentally new spiritual level. But as the chosen one powerfully rises above temptation, the battlefield undergoes an unexpected, dramatic shift. 4. The test of self-confrontation. The war zone abruptly moves from the external world to the intense, silent chambers of your internal world. The next test is the most internal, the most confronting, and the hardest trial to completely escape. You are about to be forced into a profound encounter with the raw, unedited version of yourself that you have been successfully avoiding for years. There arrives a critical juncture in the journey, where all the external noise dramatically fades. This is not because your life suddenly became easier, but because God desires you to finally hear what has been systematically buried deep inside you. When all the necessary distractions fall away, when the peripheral people who kept your mind perpetually busy suddenly disappear, when the encompassing world falls into a profound quietness, God intentionally turns the mirror directly toward your soul. He does this not to induce shame, but to meticulously unveil a deep truth that you were previously not strong enough to handle or face. This is the specific test that most believers ultimately never survive, because it demands a type of raw, honest courage that no external battlefield could ever instill. In this trial, your true enemy is not the world, nor your past, nor the devil himself. Your enemy is the persistent, lingering version of you that still stubbornly carries crippling pride, paralyzing fear, corrosive jealousy, deep insecurity, destructive old habits, and a multitude of unhealed, painful wounds. You begin to notice undeniable, toxic patterns, the same relationships ending in identical ways, the same explosive, disproportionate reactions, the same emotional ruptures, the same quiet, hidden brokenness. You realize with a sickening clarity that there are deep scars you intentionally never treated, profound traumas you refuse to process, and dysfunctional behaviors you consistently blamed on others just to avoid the unbearable pain of looking inward. God is not trying to humiliate or embarrass you. He is trying to completely free you. You cannot possibly walk into a monumental destiny carrying open wounds that bleed afresh every time someone merely touches your painful past. You cannot possibly carry legitimate, spiritual authority if your fragile ego still craves constant external applause. You cannot effectively serve the kingdom if crushing bitterness still shouts louder than sincere compassion. Therefore, God purposefully isolates you, not as a punishment, but as an essential detoxification of your soul. Suddenly, you see absolutely everything with undeniable clarity. You see the elaborate mask you learned to wear just to survive. You see the many pieces of yourself that never fully healed. And this confrontation hurts more profoundly than any betrayal, more painfully than any loss. Because this time you have no one left to blame but yourself. Transformation is impossible without radical, ruthless honesty. And honesty demands a specific kind of death, the death of the old, failing identity, the death of the toxic old reactions, the death of the version of you that was barely strong enough to survive the world, but which is nowhere near pure enough to carry the magnitude of God's ultimate calling. In this test, you are not called to defeat external enemies. Your primary mandate is to definitively defeat yourself. Your pride must be broken. Your ego must completely bow. Your hardened heart must become soft again. God meticulously begins to rebuild you layer by layer. Your past pain is transmuted into profound wisdom. Your deep, untreated wounds become razor-sharp spiritual discernment. Your forced silence is converted into unshakable strength, and without even realizing the change, you begin to shine differently. People instinctively sense a powerful, new presence when you are near. Even if you utter no words. 5. The test of rejection. Yet, just when your internal world begins to find its new equilibrium, a different kind of battle immediately arises. This battle originates not from within, but from the very people you were certain would stand with you until the end. The next test cuts deeper than the initial silence, deeper than the pain of loss, and deeper than the discomfort of self-confrontation. The next test is the agonizing reality of rejection, and many chosen ones are simply unprepared for the profound cut that is coming. Nothing wounds the human heart with the severity of rejection, especially when it is delivered by the people you had no expectation of ever losing. When God commences the elevation of your spirit, something utterly invisible powerfully shifts within your core being. Your intrinsic values change. The depth and nature of your conversations change. Your vision for the future rapidly expands. And suddenly the people who once innately understood you now find you completely foreign. They look at you and see someone fundamentally different, someone spiritually distant, someone they can no longer easily control or confidently predict. Initially, your instinct is to desperately try to explain your evolution. You try to hold on to them, to keep the bonds intact. You may even try to shrink yourself back down, hoping they won't feel so uncomfortable in your growing presence. But God's hand is relentlessly pulling you upward, and the higher He pulls you, the more the wrong kind of people inevitably fall away. Doors you once relied upon slam shut unexpectedly. Invitations cease coming. Friends you trusted implicitly vanish without so much as a proper explanation. Even cherished family members may begin to whisper behind your back, honestly wondering if you have finally lost your mind, when in the magnificent reality of God's plan, you have finally and completely found your ultimate purpose. The fundamental truth you must absorb is this: rejection is not a personal attack. It is an undeniable divine filter. God hears toxic conversations you will never hear. He sees nefarious intentions you consistently overlook. He knows precisely who would ruthlessly sabotage your destiny long before you ever arrive there. So, instead of allowing you to be brutally betrayed later on, He strategically removes them now. It feels profoundly cruel, but it is the ultimate act of protection. If absolutely everyone could remain in your circle, then everyone would ultimately benefit from your eventual blessing. But not everyone was ever destined to sit at your table of provision when God sets it directly in front of your enemies. Rejection is, therefore, God's brilliant divine method of separation. Chosen souls are never elevated in the distraction of crowds. They are elevated and empowered in the intense, focused quiet of isolation. And here is the subtle, painful twist. Sometimes the people who reject you are not inherently evil. They are simply not built for the extreme altitude to which God is powerfully taking you. Your inevitable growth violently exposes their stagnation. Your brilliant, increasing light reveals their chosen darkness. Your massive, disruptive calling fundamentally disrupts their comfort and complacency. You become a constant, uncomfortable reminder of the powerful version of themselves they have actively refused to become. That is why your growing presence profoundly irritates their spirit. You didn't intentionally offend them. Your very purpose did. So if you feel consistently forgotten, isolated, utterly ignored, or actively pushed aside, it is not abandonment. It is a necessary alignment. God is not simply subtracting people from your life. He is diligently clearing the sacred space for the high value, covenant connections who will relentlessly push you higher, pray truthfully for you, and fiercely protect the precious thing He has sovereignly placed inside you. 6. The test of waiting. This is the ultimate test. The trial that has broken more deeply committed believers than persecution, rejection, or even acute heartbreak combined. This is because, after you have successfully survived the crushing silence, after enduring the agony of loss, after conquering the lure of temptation and facing the brutal mirror of self-confrontation, and after being definitively separated from the wrong company, you naturally expect the breakthrough to finally manifest. You anticipate the massive doors to swing open wide. You expect the promise to finally and fully arrive. But instead of the expected movement, you get absolutely nothing. No clear signs, no dramatic miracles, no definitive, encouraging instructions. Just an agonizing, perpetual stillness. Days bleed into months. Months feel like an insurmountable, wasted lifetime. And you begin to seriously wonder if you fundamentally misheard God, if you completely imagined your calling, if you were a fool to ever believe that something truly great was intended for you. Waiting feels like a cruel and arbitrary punishment. But in the reality of the Spirit, it is the absolute final classroom of faith. Anyone can profess belief in God's master plan when things are dynamically moving forward. Only the chosen can maintain their belief and worship when absolutely everything appears to have stood stone still. Waiting exposes the fundamental quality of faith you carry. Do you truly trust God, or do you merely trust visible, consistent movement? Do you worship Him as God, or do you only worship tangible progress? Do you deeply desire His perfect timing, or do you only truly love Him when His actions match your rigid schedule? The enemy relentlessly whispers, "Nothing is genuinely changing, give up. You have already waited far too long." But what the enemy, in his limited view, fails to realize is that heaven is not idle. It is diligently building in the silence. You are not being ignored or forgotten. You are being meticulously and strategically prepared. If God had simply given you what you asked for the very moment you asked, that premature blessing would have likely destroyed you. Blessings delivered too early inevitably become crushing burdens. Opportunities presented too soon transform into sophisticated traps. So God intentionally holds it back, not to maliciously torture you, but to comprehensively protect you. While you are forced to wait, He is actively strengthening what is weak in your spiritual core. He is maturing what is spiritually immature. He is definitively closing doors you would have impulsively run through too fast. He is meticulously arranging covenant connections you have not yet even met. And suddenly, you begin to realize with awe that the waiting season is not empty at all. It is incredibly strategic. The promised destiny is being expertly constructed, brick by invisible brick, detail by necessary detail, in a spiritual realm you cannot yet perceive. What is clearly delayed is not by any means denied. It is simply being built to last. Remember the great figures of Scripture: Joseph, David, Hannah. Every single profound destiny recorded in the Bible was definitively born in a protracted season of waiting, because waiting purifies motives. Waiting ruthlessly kills spiritual pride. Waiting eliminates self-defeating impatience. Waiting ultimately proves the true condition of the heart. And here is the powerful secret you need to know. The precise moment you stop complaining, stop worrying, stop doubting, and start resting in His sovereignty, that is the moment heaven dramatically shifts into action. God will not allow you to enter the promise stressed, desperate, and spiritually fragile. He will usher you in whole, steady, and utterly unshakable. And when He finally moves, it will happen with a velocity far greater than you ever imagined. The blessing that seemed permanently frozen will suddenly appear fully formed. The door that looked eternally sealed will violently swing wide. The promise that felt impossibly distant will materialize in a single, unexpected, life-altering moment. 7. The test of total obedience. But there is one more test. This is the most dangerous, the most definitive, the single trial that separates casual believers from true destiny carriers. Because after the silence, the loss, the temptation, the inner battles, the rejection, and the stretching of the waiting, there comes the undeniable command. And God will ask you for something that will violently shake you to your very core. This is the test of total obedience. And this is where everything in your life fundamentally changes. This is the final gate, the deepest spiritual cut, the absolute point where the vast majority of people stop, and only the truly, deeply chosen willingly step forward, because after all the previous trials, there comes the moment when God asks for an action that simply does not make any logical sense. Not a small, comfortable yes, but a yes that costs you everything. A yes that profoundly hurts. A yes that feels precisely like stepping off a towering cliff with zero guarantee of a safe landing. This is the ultimate test that finally exposes your true, fundamental motives. Countless individuals claim they want God's perfect will, until that will directly contradicts their own comfortable logic, their rigid timing, their deepest desires, or their desperate need for control. Total obedience is when God commands you to willingly abandon something objectively safe for something entirely invisible. When He tells you to fully forgive the person who utterly broke you. When He instructs you to definitively walk away from a financially sensible path toward a route that appears utterly impossible. When He demands you to diligently serve while you are completely exhausted. To sincerely love while your heart is severely bruised. To generously give when you have next to nothing. To relentlessly trust when your spirit feels utterly empty. This is the precise juncture where the battle is no longer between you and the external world. It becomes an intense singular war between your willing spirit and your resistant flesh. Your survival-focused flesh shouts, "Protect yourself." God's voice gently commands, "Surrender." Your human mind screams, "This is utterly crazy." God's voice firmly declares, "This is your destiny." Obedience is the stark, unmistakable reveal of what you truly worship. Is it God? Or is it your own meticulously crafted plan wearing the convincing disguise of faith? Most believers genuinely love God's glorious promises, but tragically few actively love and prioritize His often difficult instructions. The truly chosen are the ones who deliberately and consistently obey, even when they absolutely do not understand the reason why. Faith is not proven when you receive exactly what you've been praying for. Faith is proven when God asks for something you desperately want to keep, and you open your hand in surrender anyway. Heaven watches with rapt attention the moment you consciously choose obedience over the need for immediate understanding. That single act is when the chains of doubt break. That is when your spiritual ceiling instantly shatters. That is when what has been locked finally and irrevocably unlocks. Because when your obedience is complete, your calling is immediately activated. You do not rise to your purpose because you are inherently strong. You rise because you are completely surrendered. Destiny does not simply arrive for those who speak loudly about their faith. Destiny arrives for those who are willing to bleed for it. And once you utter that difficult, painful yes, something completely supernatural dramatically shifts. Unshakable peace definitively replaces fear. Crystalline clarity replaces confusion. Supernatural strength completely replaces exhaustion. You realize with a flood of grace that the very thing God asked you to surrender was never truly a loss. It was, in fact, the exact price of your elevation. And now that every single test is fully complete, something holy and massive begins. Because when a chosen soul survives the silence, the loss, the temptation, the inner confrontation, the rejection, the waiting, and the profound command of obedience, God does not merely use them. He begins to powerfully move through them. If you are still here, still intently listening, still drawing breath, still deep in the fight, then you are undeniably closer to that monumental moment than you can possibly comprehend. Stay connected because the final conclusion is about to arrive, and what God is preparing to release will make every single tear you've cried finally make ultimate, glorious sense. Chosen one, pause and truly look at the sheer magnitude of what you have successfully survived. The silence tried its hardest to utterly break your faith. The loss attempted to shatter your foundational trust. The temptation worked relentlessly to pull you back into the small, inadequate person you used to be. The painful self-confrontation exposed every single hidden wound you had buried. The rejection cut you precisely where you were the most fragile. The waiting season stretched your spirit until you thought you would permanently snap. And the final test of obedience demanded a level of total surrender that only the seasoned warriors of heaven can fully comprehend. Yet, here you are, still alive, still breathing, still standing firmly, and still fighting the good fight. That fact alone is the irrefutable, undeniable proof of who you truly are. You were not chosen because you were perfect or without fault. You were chosen because at your core, you possess a spirit that simply will not quit. Every test you faced was a master key. Every tear that fell was a seed planted. Every battle was meticulously shaping the unstoppable version of you that the old world simply cannot handle or defeat. What often looked like cruel abandonment was, in fact, intense training. What consistently felt like harsh punishment was, in reality, strategic preparation. What seemed like an unforgivable delay was every time divine protection. God was never in the business of destroying your life. He was actively and powerfully rebuilding you from the inside out. The final truth is simple, yet awe-inspiring. Heaven does not commit to preparing small people for small missions. God only breaks, bends, stretches, and refines those who are absolutely destined to carry something so profoundly powerful. It will change the course of generations. You were never intended to be ordinary. That is the definitive reason why your specific path has never been easy or convenient. Those who are tested the deepest are inevitably used the mightiest. There is a powerful reason why you did not die in the very circumstances that absolutely should have killed you. There is a sacred reason why your spirit forcefully woke up, while so many others remain spiritually asleep. There is a precise reason why the enemy fought you with such violent personal intensity. Hell does not waste its valuable time attacking the meaningless. Hell attacks the chosen. So receive this as a profound prophetic declaration over your life. Your name will be remembered. Your story will finally make sense. Your scars will ultimately speak louder and more powerfully than your words. And the very places and people that once violently rejected you will one day stand in silence and witness your monumental, undeniable rise. The powerful hand of God is not merely coming for you. It is already definitively on you. And everything He has promised, everything He has required you to wait for, will arrive in a way that will make every single tear, every painful night, every moment of suffering instantly worth the unbelievable cost. If this message is not just resonating but actively burning within your spirit, you must declare it publicly and seal it in faith. Comment below right now, I refuse to give up. I am still chosen. Write it, claim it, speak it directly into your future, because you are closer to your ultimate breakthrough than your weary mind currently thinks. The very existence of the tests you've faced is the most concrete evidence of the massive calling upon your life. And the fact that you are still here, still watching, still believing, means beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is not finished with you.